Cuba commemorates the 70th anniversary of the assault on the Moncada and Carlos Manuel de Cespedes barracks led by Fidel Castro with the aim of overthrowing the dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista. Ecuador's authorities suspended school activities and militarizes security as violence hits the region. The second Russia-Africa Summit will begin in St. Petersburg on July 27th to the 28th under the motto for peace, security, and development. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Wednesday, Cuba commemorates the 70th anniversary of the assault on the Moncada and Carlos Manuel de Cespedes barracks, led by Fidel Castro with the aim of overthrowing the dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista. With the presence of Army General Raúl Castro Ruz, leader of the Cuban Revolution and the first Secretary of the Central Committee of the party and President of the Republic, Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez, the central act for the 70th anniversary of the assault on the Moncada and Carlos Manuel de Cespedes barracks began. Over 10,000 people representing the Cuban people in the former military fortress began the celebration in remembrance of the historical leader of the Cuban Revolution, Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro Ruz. Attending the event were two other commanders of the revolution, Ramiro Valdez Menendez, assailant of the Moncada, and Guillermo Garcia Frias. Some 269 friends of Cuba from 26 countries of Latin America and the Caribbean, North America and Europe also gathered there to pay tribute to the heroes on the day of national rebellion in Cuba. The Cuban president pointed out that the assault on the Moncada was the beginning of the Cuban uprising against U.S. imperialism.
Of July 26, 1953, were the beginning of the end of the last dictatorship installed in Cuba with the moral and material support of the United States. For that reason, they don't forgive the revolution. For that reason, and because they thought that with the physical disappearance of the historical generation, they could break the national independence, the international solidarity, the defense of the socialist alternative to the savage capitalism.
The Cuban president also pointed out that the policy of sanctions and blockade implemented by Washington against the island is a consequence of the Cuban emancipation in pursuit of a socialist project.
More aggressive and intolerant they have shown themselves to be by constantly asserting that there is no force in the world that can make us renounce those principles, that can make us renounce those Marxist but also Marti and Fidelista ideals that inspire the tireless struggle for the greatest possible social justice. This explains the severity of the economic blockade and the current validity of the reinforcement measures maintained by the government of Donald Trump and the escalation of the blockade.
Ecuador's Esmeralda's province suspends school activities and militarizes security as violence hits the region. After the intense day of violence perpetrated on Tuesday in several sectors, the Provincial Security Committee decided to adopt measures to maintain order and confront the insecurity that has been affecting the population. Likewise, the Ministry of Education has ordered the suspension of on-site activities in the education institutions in at least 4 localities. Meanwhile, the agency indicated that it will evaluate the development of the situation in the territory and will inform about the return to on-site classes as soon as the conditions allow it. On Thursday, the Argentine presidential pre-candidate of Unión por la Patria party, Juan Grabois, led an act together with the former president of Bolivia, Evo Morales, at the School of Dentistry of Buenos Aires University. During the event, they talked about strategic resources for the region and Argentina's electoral context as the South American nation will hold its primary elections. After the representation of the national deputy for the Frente Patria Grande, Natalia Saracho, Grabois praised the administration of Evo Morales, saying he has a similar vision for Argentina with strategic control of natural resources, a proper housing, land agriculture, and urban policies. On his part, Evo Morales highlighted his government program in 2005 based in social equity. They also referred to the 2019 coup in Bolivia, saying it was intended to grab the nation's natural resources, specifically lithium. Both social leaders stressed their programs aim for equality, anti-colonization, justice, and well-being of peoples. In Argentina, indigenous communities of Jujuy go to the capital of the country to demand the repeal of the reform to the provincial constitution, which endorses the pillage of its ancestral territories and criminalizes the protests. Our correspondent Joaquin Brown with details in the following report.
With the first rays of the sun, the communities performed a ceremony to ask the ancestors and the Pachamama to accompany the brothers who began their path to Buenos Aires. From La Cuica in the extreme north of Argentina, the third Malón de la Paz started a march combining journeys on foot and by car to reach the federal capital.
We do not kneel anymore. They are simple usurpers. We are the owners. And with that pride, we are going to walk.
Upon arriving in Purmamarca, the indigenous communities carry out an act in which they reaffirm their claims. They will ask the Supreme Court of Justice to rule the nullity of the amendment to the provincial Magna Carta imposed by the governor of Jujuy and a pre-candidate for the vice president, Gerardo Morales. They also affirm that they will address the legislative branch. The National Congress approves a federal intervention law for Jujuy, and that the National Congress approves a community property law for the indigenous peoples of Argentina. They further highlight that the intermittent roadblocks and peaceful camps will continue throughout the provincial territory despite the persecution and criminalization of the protests.
We are already tired of waiting for these serene people who every day make us fight the poor against the poor.
Brothers who stay in permanence who have the same value as the brothers who are going to march to Buenos Aires, all with one heart and the same objective, brothers, united like the fingers of the hand. At the late afternoon, unions, social and human rights movement that make up the multi-sector against reform received the third La Paz raid in San Salvador de Jujuy. They are expected to arrive in Buenos Aires on August 1st, Mother Earth Day.
Joaquín Brand, teleSUR, Jujuy, Argentina.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. On Wednesday morning, a construction crane collapsed in Manhattan, injuring 5 people. The incident occurred at a vacant construction site on 10th Avenue and 41st Street. Firefighters responded to a 5-alarm fire at the site. New York City officials said to expect emergency personnel, smoke, and traffic delays in the area. The city's emergency notification system said, according to the New York Police Department, 5 people suffered no life-threatening injuries as a result of the crane collapse, while the crane operator remains missing. The second Russia-Africa Summit will begin in St. Petersburg on July 27th to the 28th. This important event is attended by 49 African delegations and, as on the previous occasion, is being held under the motto for peace, security and development. Alexander Polyakov, Deputy Director of the Africa Department of the Russian Foreign Ministry, said that half of the countries will be represented by heads of state and government. The senior official noted that African countries demonstrate by their attitude their firm determination to develop relations with Russia, despite unprecedented pressure from the West. In St. Petersburg, Russia and African countries will agree on a joint action plan until 2026. Moscow will also offer African countries help with food problems after the suspension of the grain agreement. On Wednesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin assured his nation will continue to help African countries to strengthen their sovereignty. In his greeting to participants and guests at the Russia-Africa Economic and Humanitarian Forum, the president said that Moscow will continue to fully assist African countries in strengthening their sovereignty and taking a more active part in solving regional and global problems. He also stressed that Russia supports the aspirations of the countries of Africa for socio-economic stability and progress. This meeting is part of the second summit of the Russia-Africa Economic and Humanitarian Forum that will take place on the 27th and 28th of July in St. Petersburg. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu held talks with his North Korean counterpart Kang Sun-nam on Wednesday in Pyongyang, where the Russian military chief is on an official visit. Russia and North Korea intend to develop the cooperation in the military sphere.
The Democratic People's Republic of Korea is an important partner of Russia, with which we are united by a common border and a rich history of cooperation. I'm convinced that today's talks will contribute to strengthening cooperation between our ministries.
In 2023, the El Niño weather pattern has brought extreme heat to many countries in the northern hemisphere, including Japan. For the past 8 consecutive days, Tokyo residents have endured temperatures above 35 degrees Celsius, setting a new record for the month of July. On Tuesday, in some parts of Tokyo, temperatures went slightly above 38 degrees Celsius. The Tokyo Fire Department has been getting ready for an influx of calls as temperatures continue to rise and heat stroke patients increase. In order to prevent heat stroke and other heat-related illnesses, the Environment Ministry is urging people to drink water often, stay in the shade, use hats and umbrellas, and wear cool clothes. The authorities of Greece declared a state of emergency in the entire island of Rhodes due to the heavy forest fires. Residents of the island of Rhodes described the immense loss over the past week, when fires razed thousands of acres of forest, destroying wildlife and property, while the Greek government evacuated at least 19,000 people. Large fires in parts of Greece and in other Mediterranean countries advanced on Wednesday, causing more death, destroying homes, and threatening nature reserves during a third successive wave of extreme temperatures. China decreed the highest red alert for its 4-color system before the next arrival on its coast of Super Typhoon Doksuri. According to the China Meteorological Center, Doksuri is expected to impact the coastal areas of the southern provinces of Fujian and Canton on Friday morning. The typhoon, which has registered a wind force of level 17 near the center, it is expected to arrive in the Bashik Canal to the strait between the Philippine island of Yami and the Taiwanese island of the Orchids on Wednesday. The phenomenon is expected to move towards the northwest at the speed of 10 to 15 km per hour with few changes in intensity, affirmed the center. Local authorities estimate that this typhoon, catalogued as the first to reach the red alert level this year, may be the strongest impact in the eastern area of Canton. In the Philippines, Typhoon Doksuri made landfall on a group of islands and hit the northern provinces of the country. According to the authorities, at least 2 people died and thousands were displaced as a result of the strong winds of 175 km per hour, accompanied by rainfall that affected on the roof of the rural houses, causing flooding in low-lying villages and destroying trees. The tropical phenomenon also caused rivers to overflow and left thousands of people without electricity. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you will be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Beijing denounces a cyber attack against a state-run center in the city of Wuhan. Preliminary evidence suggests a U.S. urging. According to the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mao Ning, the attack affected the earthquake monitoring center of the central province of Hubei in Wuhan. She also pointed out that this action represents a serious threat to China's national security and therefore condemns the attack as an irresponsible act. For its part, the Foreign Ministry denounced that the government agencies of the Asian country are subject to massive cyber attacks almost daily, and most of them originate in the North American country.
According to reports published by relevant Chinese institutions, hacking organizations with the background of foreign governments have carried out a cyber attack on Wuhan Earthquake Monitoring Center, which poses a serious threat to China's national security. We condemn this irresponsible act mentioned above. China will take necessary measures to safeguard its cybersecurity.
On Wednesday, several Indian opposition parties filed two motions of no confidence against Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government. While these motions are expected to fail due to Modi's party having a clear majority, with 303 seats out of 542 in the lower house, they serve as a symbolic move to push for a debate on critical issues, including the ongoing deadly wave of ethnic violence in the volatile northeastern region of the country. The Indian National Congress Party, part of a newly formed alliance of major opposition parties ahead of next year's general election, has reportedly obtained authorization for the no-confidence vote from Parliament. For a no-confidence vote to proceed in the Indian Parliament, the support of at least 50 members of the House is necessary, a threshold the Congress Party is expected to achieve without complications. On Wednesday, the Palestinian Ministry of Health reported that Israeli forces have shot and killed a Palestinian youth during confrontations in the occupied West Bank city of Nablus. Palestinian News and Information Agency WAFA correspondent said that a Palestinian had been shot in the chest during the confrontations that broke out after Israeli troops barged into the refugee camp of Al Ain in Nablus, surrounding a house there. Moham Abdul Hakim, age 23, was taken to the hospital in a critical condition, but shortly after was pronounced dead. Israeli forces raided the camp amidst intense shooting, resulting in confrontations with Palestinian youth. Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum was held in Niamey on Wednesday by the Presidential Guard after talks failed. A source close to the presidency stated at the end of the talks, the Presidential Guard refused to release the president and the army gave him an ultimatum. In a message posted on Twitter renamed X, Niger's presidency indicates that on Wednesday morning, elements of the Presidential Guard launched an anti-Republican movement and tried in vain to gain the support of the National Armed Forces and the National Guard. The history of Niger, a former French colony, a poor country ravaged by jihadist violence, has been marked by coup d'etat and coup attempts since its independence in 1960. Kenya's opposition party said on Tuesday they will bring charges of police atrocities that led to the death of 30 people amid demonstrations against cost of living increases and new taxes to the International Criminal Court. Opposition coalition leader Raila Odinga announced at a press conference in Nairobi that his party is gathering new evidence of police aggression against protesters. The demonstrations, which have spread throughout the country and criticized the government of President William Ruto for the rising cost of living and new taxes that have led to increases in fuel prices. Human rights groups condemn police. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.